You're saying you own this land? Mr. Reed, this is a redevelopment zone now. This building is a liability. These residents are temporary.
Vivian Sterling's laugh didn't come from humor. It came from habit, the habit of someone who'd spent her whole life watching other people shrink. The hallway of Maple Court Apartments was too narrow for her entourage, too low-ceilinged, too damp. The air smelled like old paint and wet concrete, like a building that had been holding its breath for years. Her heels clicked anyway, sharp, unapologetic, like punctuation. Across from her stood Marcus Reed, broad shoulders, faded hoodie, hands relaxed at his sides as if he'd accidentally wandered into the wrong scene and refused to look embarrassed about it. Vivian tilted her chin toward the wrinkled eviction notice taped to the wall behind him. "Mr. Reed," she said, savoring the name like it tasted cheap, "this is a redevelopment zone now. This building is a liability. These residents are—" Her eyes flicked to the onlookers, the mothers holding toddlers, the elderly man clutching his cane. "Temporary." Marcus didn't flinch. He simply stepped forward and placed something on the folding table the property manager had dragged out. A folder, navy blue, clean, crisp, like it didn't belong here. Vivian raised an eyebrow. "Is that supposed to be, what, a complaint?" Marcus's voice stayed level, quiet enough that the hallway leaned in to hear it. "I'm not filing a complaint." Vivian smiled wider. "Then what are you doing?" Marcus looked past her toward the open stairwell where rainwater ran down the rail like tears that never ended. "I'm keeping my daughters home." Vivian's smile turned into a smirk. "Home?" she echoed. "You mean this place?" She spread her hand as if presenting a joke to the crowd. "Mr. Reed, you don't look like you can afford the lobby of my office, let alone property worth tens of millions." Marcus's eyes didn't harden. They didn't blaze. They simply held. "I don't need your lobby," he said. "I just need a roof that doesn't disappear because someone decided it's inconvenient." Vivian leaned closer. Her perfume cut through the damp air, expensive, sharp, out of place. "Fine," she murmured. "Show me your little papers. I want to see how far you're willing to pretend." Marcus slid the folder toward her. Vivian opened it with 2 fingers, like she was touching something that might stain, and then her smirk froze. Because the first page wasn't a complaint. It wasn't a plea. It was a document with a seal, a signature, and a name so heavy it bent the air. Howard Sterling. Vivian's breath caught so fast it sounded like a mistake, and in the silence that followed, even the rain seemed to hesitate. But to understand why Vivian Sterling's laughter died in 3 seconds, we have to go back a few weeks. Back to Maple Court, before the folder was placed on the table, before the eviction notice turned into a countdown, and before Marcus Reed decided to do the one thing he'd spent years avoiding: step into the light. Maple Court Apartments sat at the edge of Riverton like an old coat nobody wanted but everyone kept using. The paint on the stairwell peeled in slow curls. The elevator had been temporarily out of order so long that children had grown into teenagers without ever trusting it again. When it rained, the roof didn't so much leak as confess, water slipping through seams, tapping into buckets, making the hallways sound like a drumline of survival. And still, Maple Court was alive. Mrs. Alvarez on the 3rd floor always left warm bread outside her door for anyone too proud to ask. Darnell on the 1st floor fixed broken fans for the price of a smile. Kids raced through the corridors like they owned the world because in a place like Maple Court, childhood had to fight for space. Marcus Reed lived on the 4th floor, apartment 4B. The door stuck if you didn't lift it a little while turning the knob. Marcus did it automatically, without thinking, like muscle memory. Inside, clean, small, carefully held together, a couch with one worn armrest, a tiny kitchen table with 2 chairs, a single framed photo on the wall, Marcus holding a little girl on his shoulders, both of them laughing under a summer sun. That girl was Ava Reed, 8 years old, bright eyes, quick hands, the kind of child who asked questions not to challenge you, but to understand how the world worked so she could survive it. On mornings, Marcus woke before dawn. He moved like someone who didn't want to wake the building's grief. Coffee, toast, a lunch packed with too much care. Then he'd stand for a second by the window, watching rain or sunlight, whatever the day offered, as if he was measuring how much the sky planned to take. Ava shuffled out in socks that never matched. "Daddy," she mumbled, rubbing her face. Is it raining again? Marcus glanced at the window. Rain traced slow lines down the glass. Yeah, he said softly. Just a little. Ava frowned like rain was an enemy she'd been losing to. The hallway bucket was full last night. I'll empty it. She climbed onto a chair and stared at the keyring hanging by the door. A single old key, dull brass, slightly bent, hung on it like a talisman. Ava reached for it and wrapped her fingers around it. You still have this, she said. Marcus's gaze softened. Of course I do. Ava swallowed. If we have the key, they can't take our home, right? That was the wound, not the poverty, not the peeling paint. The real wound lived in that question. The fear that a child could be locked out of her life because someone with money decided she didn't belong. Marcus crouched beside her, making his voice steady. Listen to me, he said. As long as I'm here, nobody takes your home. Ava stared into his face like she was trying to read the truth beneath the words. Promise? Marcus didn't answer quickly, because promises were dangerous, but he nodded anyway. I promise. And somewhere deep inside him, something old and heavy stirred. The memory of another promise he'd once made, and the way he'd failed it. That same week, Vivian Sterling's face appeared everywhere. Screens in subway stations, billboards, news clips that played in waiting rooms. She stood in sleek suits, under perfect lights, smiling the way a blade smiled before it fell. Riverton is changing, she told a reporter. We're building a city that reflects the future. That means removing what holds us back. The reporter asked about residents being displaced by Sterling Holdings' new luxury development, Sterling Galleria. Vivian's smile didn't change. Progress isn't comfortable, she said, but it's necessary. When the clip played in the Maple Court laundry room, Mrs. Alvarez spat into a cup. She talked like people are furniture, she muttered. Marcus watched without expression. Ava peeked at the screen, then up at her father. She's the one? Ava asked quietly. Marcus didn't respond right away. Yes, he said finally. She is. Ava hugged the old key tighter, and Marcus turned off the screen with one firm press. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday, not in an envelope, not as a letter, as a bright red sheet taped to the front lobby wall, bold letters like a warning flare. Notice of redevelopment, vacate within 30 days. The building gathered around it like mourners around a grave. People argued. People cried. People planned. Marcus read it once and stared at the date, 30 days. Ava clung to his sleeve. Daddy, she whispered, are we? Marcus folded the fear down inside his chest like a paper he couldn't afford to lose. We're not leaving, he said. But we're not leaving, he repeated, softer, like a prayer. That night, after Ava fell asleep with the key in her fist, Marcus sat at the kitchen table. He opened a drawer he rarely touched. Inside, a lanyard from a financial summit, old, frayed, with a name badge that had been scratched until the ink was nearly gone. If you looked close, you could still see the outline of letters. M. Reed. He stared at it for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. His voice, when it came, wasn't the voice of a man asking for help. It was the voice of a man issuing a careful instruction. Eleanor, he said. A pause, then a woman's voice, calm and alert. Marcus, Eleanor Park replied. I was wondering when you'd call. He exhaled through his nose, not quite a laugh. They put up the notice. Another pause, shorter, sharper. So it started. Yes. Do you want me to step in? Marcus looked toward Ava's bedroom door. Not yet, he said. I need to confirm something first. Eleanor's tone cooled. Marcus, if Sterling Holdings is involved, I know, he cut in, then softened. I know. Silence. Then Eleanor said, Tell me what you need. Marcus closed his eyes. I need the file, he said, the one Howard insisted on keeping sealed. Eleanor didn't ask questions. I'll get it, she said. But Marcus, if you open that door, you won't be able to go back to being invisible. Marcus's jaw tightened. Invisible is a luxury I don't have anymore. He ended the call and sat still, listening to the rain patter against the window. It sounded like the city whispering, How long can you hold on? Over the next days, odd things began to surface. When a neighbor asked Marcus how to fight eviction, he didn't shrug or guess. He explained tenant rights in a clear sequence. Timelines, legal terms, procedural steps, like someone who'd spent years reading contracts that decided people's lives. Mrs. Alvarez blinked at him. "Marcus," she said slowly, "where you learned to talk like that?" Marcus just smiled faintly. "I read," he said. "But reading didn't give you that tone. Experience did." Ava noticed too. One evening she watched him scribble numbers on paper, fast, neat columns. "What are you doing?" she asked, chin on the table. "Math," Marcus said. Ava squinted. "That's not kid math." Marcus's pen paused. Ava leaned closer. "Daddy, what did you do before?" Marcus's eyes flicked to the scratched badge in the drawer. He swallowed. "I made mistakes," he said. "That's not a job." Marcus's mouth twitched. "It was a job," he admitted. "And it was big." Ava waited. Marcus reached for her hand, prying the key gently from her fist. He held it up. "See this?" he asked. Ava nodded. "This key means something because you believe it does," Marcus said. "But the truth is, a key is only powerful if the door behind it has the right lock." Ava frowned. "So our door?" Marcus looked toward the apartment door. "Your home," he corrected quietly. "That's the lock I'm protecting." Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. "From her?" Marcus didn't say Vivian's name. He didn't need to. Outside, the rain kept falling, and inside, something in Marcus was preparing to move, like a quiet engine starting. Vivian Sterling arrived at Maple Court on a Friday, not alone. She came with assistants in matching coats, lawyers with briefcases, and security with hands that never left their belts. They set up in the lobby like it was a press conference. A portable banner with Sterling Holdings logo appeared as if by magic. Gold letters, smooth edges, a promise of better. Vivian stood in the middle of it all like she belonged anywhere she decided to stand. Residents gathered, angry, frightened, exhausted. Ava clutched Marcus's hand so tight his fingers tingled. Vivian began speaking in a voice trained to sound kind while removing your options. "We appreciate the community Maple Court has created," she said, like she was reading a eulogy. "But this building is no longer safe. Our redevelopment plan will bring jobs, modern housing opportunities, and—" A man shouted, "We can't afford your opportunities!" Vivian's smile didn't falter. "There will be compensation," she said, "and relocation assistance." Mrs. Alvarez pushed forward. "Where? To the edge of the city? To shelters?" Vivian's gaze slid over her like water over stone. "Change requires flexibility," Vivian replied. Mr. Darnell raised his cane. "You don't get to call this change. This is stealing." One of Vivian's security men stepped forward. Vivian lifted a hand, stopping him, not out of mercy, but control. She turned her eyes toward the crowd. "Let's not be dramatic," she said, voice light. "This isn't personal. It's business." That word, business, hit Marcus like an old bruise. Ava whispered, "Daddy." Marcus squeezed her hand once, then let go. He stepped forward. The crowd shifted, uncertain. Marcus wasn't loud. He wasn't a leader type, but he had a gravity that made people step aside. Vivian's gaze landed on him. And for a brief second, her expression flickered, like she sensed something she couldn't name. Then she smirked. "Yes?" she asked. Marcus spoke clearly. "I'm requesting a legal hold on this eviction," he said. "There's an ownership dispute." The lobby went still. Vivian's head tilted. "An ownership dispute," she repeated, amused. "And who exactly is disputing Sterling Holdings?" Marcus met her eyes. "I am." A few people gasped. Someone laughed nervously. Vivian laughed too, short, bright, cruel. "You?" she said. "Sir, you can barely afford—" She stopped herself, then let the sentence finish anyway because cruelty was effortless for her. "You can barely afford to be in the same conversation as me." Marcus didn't rise to it. "Then don't talk," he said calmly. "Listen." Vivian stepped closer, eyes narrowed with entertainment. "Okay," she said softly. "Convince me." Marcus took a breath, and for a moment the hallway felt like a courtroom. "This building is protected under a trust agreement," he said, "and your company is in violation of its conditions." Vivian blinked once, then she laughed again, louder this time so her assistants could laugh with her. "Trust agreement," she echoed. "Right." She leaned in, voice low so only Marcus and Ava could hear. "You people love fairy tales," Vivian murmured. You think there's always a secret document that saves you, that someone powerful secretly cares. Her eyes flicked to Ava, and Ava instinctively stepped behind Marcus's leg. Vivian's smile sharpened. "But nobody is coming," Vivian whispered. "Not for you." Something in Marcus's face changed, small, almost invisible. Not anger, resolve. He spoke quietly. "Then I'll be the one." Vivian straightened, bored again. 30 days, she announced to the crowd. After that, Sterling Holdings takes possession. She turned to leave, and as she walked out, rain streaking down the glass doors behind her like the building was crying, Ava's small voice trembled. "Daddy," she said, "nobody's coming." Marcus crouched in front of her. Rain thundered on the roof outside. He brushed her hair back gently. "She's wrong," he said. Ava's eyes were wet. "How do you know?" Marcus looked up, past the lobby, past the peeling walls, toward something deeper, older. "Because I already came," he whispered. Vivian returned to her office that afternoon and slammed her folder of redevelopment plans onto a glass table. Her legal team flinched. "Find out who he is," she snapped. A young lawyer hesitated. "Ma'am, he's just a tenant. Our background check—" Vivian's eyes cut through him. "Background checks tell you what people want you to see," she said. "I want what they've buried." The room quieted. Vivian walked to the window of her high-rise office and looked down at Riverton like it was a board game she was winning. Her assistant cleared her throat. "Ma'am, your father's old attorney called," she said carefully. "He said the Howard Sterling estate file has been accessed." Vivian turned. "What?" The assistant swallowed. "The sealed trust file. The one you asked to keep locked." Vivian's stomach tightened. No one touched that file. No one. "Who accessed it?" Vivian demanded. The assistant glanced at her tablet. "Eleanor Park," she said. "She used her authorization." Vivian's jaw clenched. Eleanor Park was a name from her father's era. Old legal circles, quiet power. Vivian grabbed her coat. "I'm going to Maple Court," she said. Across the city, Marcus sat in Eleanor Park's office. It didn't look like a fancy law firm. No marble floors, no gold frames, just clean shelves, a desk, and the kind of silence that didn't waste words. Eleanor slid a navy folder across the desk. "This is it," she said. Marcus stared at the folder like it was a weapon he'd sworn never to touch again. He didn't open it. He just asked, "Is it still valid?" Eleanor's eyes held his. "More than valid," she said. "It's ironclad." Marcus exhaled slowly. Eleanor leaned forward. "Marcus," she said gently, "tell me something. Why did Howard Sterling do this? Really?" Marcus's gaze dropped to his hands, because the truth was heavier than legal language. "He didn't do it because he was kind," Marcus said. "He did it because he knew what it feels like to lose the ground under you." Eleanor waited. Marcus's voice lowered. "Years ago," he began, "Howard was about to lose everything. The company, the legacy, his family name." Eleanor's face softened with recognition. "The crash," she said quietly. Marcus nodded. He remembered it like a film. Late-night calls, numbers bleeding red, news anchors shouting, men in suits sweating through their collars. The city holding its breath. Howard Sterling, mighty, untouchable, had been human then. "I was a consultant," Marcus said. "Off the books. Because the board didn't trust someone like me with their lifeline." Eleanor didn't interrupt. Marcus continued. "Howard found me anyway. He came to a small office in the wrong part of town. He sat across from me and said, 'I heard you can see what others miss.'" Marcus's throat tightened. "I saved him," he admitted. "Not because he deserved it, because I couldn't watch another family fall." Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Another family?" Marcus swallowed. A flicker of pain crossed his face. Old, deep. "I had a family once," he said, "and I lost them because I chased the wrong kind of success." Eleanor reached across the desk, not touching him, but anchoring the space. "And Howard?" she said. Marcus's voice grew quieter. "He looked at me after it was done," Marcus said, and he said, "Tell me what you want, money, position, anything." Marcus smiled once, sad. "And I told him the truth," he said. "I told him I wanted one place in this city where people couldn't be thrown out like trash." Eleanor exhaled. Marcus's eyes lifted to the Navy folder. He created the trust, Marcus said. He signed it. He sealed it. Eleanor nodded. And he added a clause, she said. Marcus's jaw tightened. Yeah, he said. He said the file could only be opened if Maple Court was threatened. Eleanor's voice was quiet but firm. It's threatened now. Marcus stared at the folder. Outside Eleanor's office, rain began again, soft at first, then heavier, like the sky was urging him to move. Eleanor watched him. If you do this, she said, Sterling Holdings will come after you. Vivian Sterling will come after you. Marcus's eyes sharpened. She already is, he said. Eleanor paused. Marcus, why did you disappear after you saved Howard? She asked. Marcus's face went still. Because that part wasn't about legal documents. It was about shame. I disappeared, he said, because I realized something. Eleanor waited. Marcus's voice cracked. Not much, just enough. I realized I was good at winning, he said, and I was bad at living. He looked away. I missed my daughter's first steps because I was chasing a contract, he confessed. I missed her first words because I was chasing a title. Eleanor's eyes softened. And then her mother? Eleanor began. Marcus cut in, gentle but firm. Don't, he said. Silence. Then Marcus reached for the folder. His fingers touched the Navy cover, and for the first time in years he stopped hiding. On day 27, Sterling Holdings returned to Maple Court. This time they didn't come with a speech. They came with enforcement. A moving truck idled outside. Security blocked the doors. A man with a clipboard announced procedures like this was routine. Residents screamed, pleaded, argued. Ava stood in Marcus's doorway, pale. They're really doing it, she whispered. Marcus knelt in front of her, adjusting her jacket like he had all the time in the world. Remember what you asked me? He said. Ava blinked. About the key? Marcus nodded. He put the old key in her palm and closed her fingers around it. Hold it, he said. Not because it's magic. Ava swallowed. Then why? Marcus's eyes held hers. Because it reminds you, he said, that you belong somewhere, and nobody can erase that. Ava's lip trembled. Marcus stood. He picked up the Navy folder, and he walked into the hallway. In the lobby, Vivian Sterling stood like she'd already won. Her suit was immaculate, her hair perfect, her expression bored. The residents crowded around her like waves crashing against a cliff. Vivian's lawyer spoke loudly. Final notice. The building is condemned for redevelopment. You are required to vacate. Stop, a voice cut through. Marcus stepped forward. The room shifted as people recognized him. Quiet Marcus, the man who helped carry groceries, the man who fixed a neighbor's door, the man who never asked for attention. Vivian's eyes landed on him, and her lips curved. You again? She said. Marcus didn't respond to the tone. He walked to the folding table, placed the Navy folder down. Vivian's gaze flickered to it. Her smile returned, thin, delighted. Let me guess, she said. More fairy tales. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't perform. He simply said, This ends today. Vivian leaned forward slightly, amused. You're confident for someone with nothing, she said. Marcus's eyes didn't move. I'm confident, he replied, because you're standing on something you don't own. Vivian laughed under her breath. Okay, she said, like she was indulging a child. Show me. Marcus slid the folder toward her. Vivian opened it the way she'd opened 100 contracts, fast, dismissive, certain she would control the outcome. Her eyes scanned the first page, the seal, the signature, the name, and then her laughter stopped like someone had turned off sound. Her fingers tightened on the paper. For 1 second, Vivian Sterling looked young, not in age, in shock. Where did you get this? She whispered. Marcus's voice was soft. From the man who signed it. Vivian's jaw clenched. This is, she swallowed hard. This is impossible. Eleanor Park stepped forward from the edge of the crowd, calm as stone. It's not impossible, Eleanor said. It's executed, filed, valid, and enforceable. Vivian's lawyer snatched the paper, reading frantically. His face drained of color. Ms. Sterling, he murmured, this is a trust agreement. Vivian's eyes snapped to him. Explain, she hissed. The lawyer's throat bobbed. It states, he said slowly, that the land under Maple Court is held in trust and cannot be sold, redeveloped, or transferred under Sterling Holdings without meeting certain conditions. Vivian's fingers curled into fists. What conditions? She demanded. The lawyer kept reading. His voice faltered. It says the trust activates specifically if Sterling Holdings attempts forced displacement. The crowd quieted. Rain hammered against the lobby windows. Vivian's voice became a razor. And who is the trustee? She asked. Eleanor answered. Marcus Reed. Vivian's eyes snapped back to Marcus. You? She spat. Who are you? Marcus didn't answer immediately, because the truth wasn't just legal, it was personal. I'm the person your father called when no one else could save him, Marcus said. Vivian's face tightened. My father wouldn't. He did, Marcus cut in, still calm, but now the calm had weight. He sat across from me when the company was bleeding. He asked me for help. I gave it. Vivian shook her head like denial could rewrite reality. Then why would he give you... Marcus looked around at the residents, at the children, at Ava standing behind him, holding the old key like it was her whole world. He looked back at Vivian. Because he knew, Marcus said, that people like you would come. Vivian's breath trembled. Her voice dropped, raw. He was my father, she said. Everything he built. Marcus's eyes hardened, not cruelly, but honestly. He built it, Marcus said, and he also built this. He tapped the document. He wrote a clause you never bothered to read, Marcus continued. A clause that says if Sterling Holdings uses its power to crush a community, the trust can strip controlling rights. Vivian's lawyer looked like he might faint. It's true, he whispered. The clause. It triggers a governance review. The board can remove you as acting CEO if you violate the trust's conditions. Vivian's world shifted. Not because she cared about Maple Court. Not yet. Because she was losing what she worshipped, control. Her voice rose, sharp, cracking. You can't do this, she said to Marcus like it was a personal betrayal. Marcus's tone stayed even. I didn't do it, he said. Your father did. Vivian's eyes shone with fury. He used me, she hissed. He left me nothing but... Marcus interrupted, quieter now. He left you a test, he said, and you failed it. The sentence hit the lobby like thunder. Vivian's lips parted. For a moment, she looked like she might scream. Instead, her shoulders dipped, just slightly, as if a decade of armor had suddenly gotten heavy. Ava's small voice broke the silence. Does that mean we can stay? Every head turned. Marcus looked back at his daughter. He smiled, small, tired, real. Yes, he said. We can stay. A sound rose up. Relief, sobs, laughter, disbelief. People hugged, people cried. And Vivian Sterling stood in the center of it all, surrounded by a kind of wealth she'd never counted. People who didn't leave each other behind. Rain drummed on the roof, like applause, like judgment, like the city finally exhaling. Sterling Holdings didn't just lose a project, they lost a story they planned to tell the city. Within days, headlines turned. Sterling CEO faces board review after trust dispute. Community wins against luxury redevelopment. Vivian's board called emergency meetings. Investors panicked. Lawyers swarmed. Vivian fought like she always had, sharp, fast, ruthless. But the trust clause was a wall she couldn't buy her way through. For the first time in her life, Vivian Sterling sat alone in her office and realized she had power, but she didn't have permission. Meanwhile, Marcus did what he'd promised. He didn't celebrate with champagne. He celebrated with repairs. He met with electricians, plumbers, city inspectors. He held community meetings in the lobby, listening more than he spoke. Maple Court didn't turn into a palace overnight, but changes began, small, visible, hopeful. The elevator was fixed, the roof was sealed, the hallways were repainted. A new set of lights replaced the old flickering bulbs, and for the first time in years, the corridors didn't feel like tunnels. Ava stood in the hallway one evening, staring upward. No buckets, she whispered. Marcus smiled. No buckets, he agreed. Ava ran her fingers along the wall, amazed. It smells like new paint, she said, delighted. Marcus leaned against the railing, watching neighbors talk and laugh like they'd been given permission to breathe again. Mrs. Alvarez approached with a tray of warm bread. "You did it," she said, eyes shining. Marcus shook his head gently. "We did," he corrected. A week later, Vivian returned to Maple Court. No entourage, no banner, no heels sharp enough to cut. She wore a simple coat, hair pulled back, hands empty. The building looked different now, brighter, cleaner, alive in a way she hadn't expected. She stood in the lobby, uncertain. Marcus stepped out from the hallway, a tool belt slung over his shoulder. He stopped when he saw her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Vivian cleared her throat. "I'm not here to threaten you," she said, voice stiff. Marcus studied her. "Then why are you here?" Vivian's eyes flicked away, as if honesty was unfamiliar terrain. "I read the rest of it," she said quietly. Marcus didn't answer. Vivian's voice lowered. "My father, he wrote letters," she admitted. "In the file, to the trustee, to me." Marcus's expression softened slightly. Vivian swallowed. "He wrote that he was proud of me," she said, and the words sounded like they hurt. "But he also wrote he was afraid of what I'd become if no one ever told me no." Marcus's gaze stayed steady. Vivian's eyes lifted, shining with frustration that wasn't anger. "I built everything the way he taught me," she said. "Efficiency, growth, control." She looked around at the lobby, at kids running past, at neighbors greeting each other. "And yet," Vivian whispered, "he chose this." Marcus's voice was quiet. "He chose people," he said. Vivian's jaw tightened. "I don't know how to be what they are," she admitted, almost ashamed. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't lecture. He just said, "Start by seeing them." Vivian's breath trembled. Then she looked toward the hallway, toward Ava sitting on the steps with a notebook, drawing. Ava looked up. Her eyes narrowed slightly, still wary. Vivian hesitated, then took a small step forward. Ava hugged her notebook tighter. Vivian stopped, respecting the distance. "Hi," Vivian said, awkward. Ava didn't answer. Marcus walked closer and crouched beside Ava. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to." Ava looked at Vivian. Then she raised her hand, showing the old key on its ring. Vivian stared at it. "That's," Vivian started. Ava's voice was small but firm. "It's our key," she said. Vivian swallowed. "Yes," she whispered. "It is." A long pause. Then Vivian looked at Marcus. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. Marcus glanced around Maple Court. He saw repairs. He saw people. He saw the roof that no longer cried into buckets. He saw his daughter with the key in her hand. "I'm going to keep it," Marcus said, "and I'm going to make it better." Vivian nodded slowly. "And if I ask to help?" she said. "Not because I can take it, because I owe it." Marcus held her gaze. "You don't owe me," he said. Vivian's voice cracked. "Maybe not," she admitted, "but I think I owe my father." Marcus's face softened. "Then prove you understood his lesson," he said. Vivian nodded once, like a decision. "I will," she said. Months passed. Maple Court became something new. Not luxury, not polished perfection. Something better, stable. A small playground was built in the courtyard. A community room opened on the first floor with tables for homework and meetings. A mural went up on the side of the building, painted by residents, showing a city where everyone had a place. The rain still came because life didn't stop being life. But when it rained now, it sounded different. Not like a threat, like music. On one quiet evening, Marcus sat by the window while Ava did homework at the table. Vivian's name flashed on the news again, this time not as a triumphant headline, but as a woman stepping down from a throne she'd mistaken for a home. Ava looked up. "Daddy," she asked, "is she good now?" Marcus considered the question. "No," he said honestly. "Not yet." Ava frowned. "Will she be?" Marcus watched the rain slide down the glass. He thought of the way Vivian had stood alone in the lobby, without armor. He thought of the way she'd looked at the key. He shrugged gently. "People can change," he said, "but only if they want to." Ava stared at her homework, then quietly placed the old key on the table next to her pencil, like a symbol. like a promise. Marcus's throat tightened, but he didn't let the emotion spill too fast. He just reached across the table and squeezed his daughter's hand. Ava squeezed back. And in that small, ordinary moment, with rain tapping the window, with the navy folder locked away in a drawer, with the old key finally resting in peace, Marcus Reed felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. Not because life was perfect, but because this time, he wasn't alone. If this story touched something in you, that fear of losing your place, your people, your dignity, leave a comment for Marcus or for Ava. And if you've ever been looked down on because of where you come from, remember this. A roof is not a privilege, a home is not a trophy, and your worth was never supposed to be up for sale.